All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another RPF talk. Today we have Brian Babbage, as usual, and Tim Arp, our special guest. He is a model maker, has been doing it for decades, and you might know him by his handle, the 48th Ronin. So, hey, what's up, Tim?
Hey. Hello.
Cool. Thank you for.
I'm the Lindsey Buckingham, by the way, of this broadcast. Not even Ed McMahon. I've downgraded myself to the Lindsey Buckingham. So just wanted to get that out of the way.
So I'm glad to have you here, Brian.
Tim, it's great to meet you.
Yes.
Cool. So, Tim, we had talked offline briefly when we started doing these, and you were mentioning that you've been on the RPF for a very long time as well, and this is like
since the beginning.
Opening up the doors to the brain a little bit. So tell us like a little bit about how you found the RPF, or what was to become the RPF, and what you were doing at the time.
Well, it seems like a cliche now, but same old story. It was the AOL boards. I don't remember how that worked. It seems like a million years ago now, but you know, it was the same story. You know, the resurgence of the action figures, that got me going back into Star Wars again. Found the AOL boards, met a couple of people. I remember talking to Frank Cerny at that time, and then also eventually Brandon Allinger.
Yeah,
and I basically followed Brandon, you know, that secured his route to what became the RPF.
Cool.
And were you always the 48th Ronin?
I was. That was my AOL email address.
Cool.
At the time, I was big into Japanese swords, and I had read the story of the 47 Ronin, and was amazed by it. And I was thinking, well, what about that 48th guy that just missed out?
Nice.
So the 48th.
What happened to him?
Of course, the 48th Ronin was taken, you know, THE. So I thought, well, I guess you just use D for the 48th Ronin.
Nice.
And just recently, I had it changed to the 48th Ronin on the RPF. So.
And then your avatar is a proto-fet, I think, scheme.
Yeah.
What's the story with that?
Well, I'm a big Ralph McQuarrie fan. So in, I think it was like 1997, Mark Bradley was offering vacuform styrene Boba Fett armor kits.
Cool.
And
that's nuts.
You know,
Yeah.
I always loved that Ralph McQuarrie painting in the conference room with Vader and some other people, and there was Fett standing there, you know, with the poncho.
Yeah.
But I should do this like that. You know, and the years since then, there have been people who have done much more faithful, much better versions of that costume. But at the time, I thought, I'll just, you know, do it in white colors and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it turned out okay. I was fairly happy with it, but
it turned out fantastically. And I remember seeing that and thinking that might be the first instance of one of us doing a.
I think so.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
And I mean, like, as a guy building models, you know, I keep joking that, like, you know, we've done them all. Now all I've got left are concept things to make models of, like, to stay fresh. But
I'm a huge fan of your work in that aspect.
Oh man, thanks. Yeah, it's mostly because I was learning the 3D stuff, and I finally realized, I can do this like a little more faithfully, like I saw in my head, which had stopped me in the past. And then, as you know, as a model maker, like, being able to do something, to riff off of something, as opposed to like being completely laser focused on replicating something, it's so much more fun and creative and gratifying.
Yes. And I got to ask, do you have plans to do Macquarie's Slave One?
Yeah, actually. yeah. I do. That's on the short list. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I did the sketchbook Y-Wing and the sketchbook TIE Fighter, which is like the Macquarie like Johnson. I kind of
Johnson,
sometimes like to
yeah.
pull the best of both, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
why not? And I have like 3/4 of the way done digitally what would be the Vader. And then I got an image from one of the ILMers of a Johnson drawing of a Vader tie that
Wow.
predates anything, and it's wacky. I made little Christmas ornaments of it. It's kind of fun and bizarre, very similar to that like foam core mock-up that you see in Chronicles, where it's like real swoopy, but the back's like it's like the ball, and then there's like just a cylinder behind it.
Yeah.
So then I was like, should I go back to the drawing board and sort of mix in a lot of this to it, because it would further differentiate it from the tie that I already did. And I like that idea, because, you know, Vader would maybe have something a little more unique.
Yeah, of course.
But then after that, I was like, okay, then I have to do the X-Wing, and I want to do like the bubble canopy version of the X-Wing, not the one that's in the Macquarie painting. And then the slave one after that. Yeah, I was like, and then because it's like kind of I don't know, it's a little more, it's weird.
It is very strange.
Yeah.
That's why I love it.
Me too. And it almost looks, it's because I'm so used to the ratio of the one that they built.
Yeah.
It's unsettling.
It is. It's very stubby.
Yeah.
It's obviously round, not elliptical.
Yeah.
And the nose is very, very stubby.
Yeah. I kind of want to make that. I think that would be fun.
I've been thinking about that for at least a decade. But the thing is, I thought, well, I'll start with an acrylic hemisphere and vacuum form over that. But if you stare at it, it's not a perfect hemisphere. It's very subtle. It's subtly different.
Ugh.
So,
as you know, and there's so many times where you're making something from the sketch that inspires you or the drawing or whatever, and it just does not work in three-dimensional space. Like lines just don't intersect, and that to me is one of the most fun. Like I know probably some people would hate that moment in the process where they're like, none of this is working, and that's where I like come alive. I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. Like, how do I kludge it all together and like cram it all? Like,
but that was the challenge with the snowspeeder concept that you were working on. I remember like looking at the drawings, and you were showing me what you were looking off of and how things worked in the drawing.
Oh, the weird angles.
Yeah. They're really challenging in the physical space.
Yeah, I solved it by splitting it almost like a Cylon Raider-ish kind of thing, where the front is a completely separate element to the wings, which sort of like bolt on, and it meets up at the back, but in the front they kind of like aren't part of that front shape. And it works with that one. Like, I love it when you can rotate it to that one spot where it looks like the sketch, and then it's just wildly different, turning it just a little bit. Like that's so fun. Yeah. But okay, so back to the RPF stuff. So you find this board. Did you immediately join and start in the discourse, or did you lurk, or like how did you read it all, getting there so early?
I think it might have been a little bit of both. Probably mainly lurking, and every now and then I'd throw in what little information I knew.
Yeah. Are there any discoveries that you can lay claim to being the one that sussed it out?
Well, I don't know if I could prove it, but was it Chris that mentioned Brandon Allinger's facsimile of the Parts of Star Wars board? Because I remember Brandon's page.
Yeah.
And I sent him the factoid. I'd been sitting on this since high school. I knew that the gaffy stick was the Fijian War Club because I'd seen it in a book.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, and of course, who are you going to tell back then?
Yeah.
Who are you going to tell? And would they understand, and would they even care?
No. You tell no one. You keep that to yourself.
So it's when Brandon, put that page up, I was like, oh, hey, I know what this is. So I sent that to him.
That's awesome.
I'm sure
people are interested in that information, right? You found other, yeah.
I'm sure other people may have, they probably knew it as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, that counts. I mean, there's
I
been,
think so. In my mind, that counts.
I cannot tell you how many times somebody has, it's an interesting phenomenon. Like, and I always use the example of model kit parts because that's, where I live in my day to day, it seems. But like when somebody IDs something and they lay claim to it and then feel a sense of ownership of that ID and they want like, I don't know, accolades or a tithe, a weekly like tribute or something, like it gets real weird. And what they don't ever understand is that like there's nothing that says that like 5 other guys haven't done that in a vacuum and they've just kept that to themselves.
Right.
And the idea that, and I don't care how like rare and weird it is, you get applause and kudos and respect for figuring that out, but in no way does that give you entitled ownership or any sort of like social embiggening, or it's weird to me that goes on.
I agree. It's very strange, and they act like nobody else can make that prop. That's hands off. That's mine. You can't.
Yeah.
Their propriety,
There are designs, there are ships, there are projects that are not cursed, but God, they are politicized or just, they're I always go back to the Slave One for multiple reasons, because wars have been fought and friendships have been forged and completely shattered and body parts have been scattered to the wind. I made a t-shirt design, like the old like hippie poster art where it's the outer shape of something and the letters are all like swooshy. And like Peter Maxey kind of, but it just said the money pit because like it just sucks your wallet dry and you have nothing to show for it at the end every time. I've seen it happen to, so there's like a whole new crop of guys that have gotten into this stuff in the past couple of years, and like they all want to build Slave Ones, and I'm like, okay, dude, like beware.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because there are it's so involved. The Rebel Transport's another one of those things that is, it's like Mount Everest, like you're gonna die on that climb, dude. Like, oh my God. But yeah, so okay, so now you're on the board. Do you remember, like, are you a collector? Like, you're a builder, but do you also like collect things or?
I do, yes. On the AOL boards, the huge revelation for me was, of course, the Graflex flash gun, like many other people.
Yep.
And, man, that was a deep dive for me. I was in 100%. And
I don't think there's nothing that rivals getting something in the mail, opening the box, and being confronted with a literal piece of Star Wars staring you in the face.
And particularly that piece, because the whole thing around it, your father wanted you to have this when you're old enough.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember holding my first Graflex, and it was a naked flash gun, but I'm looking at it like, this is a lightsaber. Like, oh my God, like, how is this real? Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So that was the start for me.
Yeah.
And I'd say maybe 50-50 builder and collector.
Yeah. And do you keep all your stuff, or does it refine over the years? Like, have you?
The lightsaber collection has been refined over the years, and I'm almost done with it. I've decided to pare it down to just the original trilogy, and with none of the stunts. Just like the belt hangers.
Yeah, the belt hangers. Nice. How do you display your lightsabers? I should be asking this question of everyone.
Yes. I did something different. I saw on Etsy this guy making vertical stands, so they stand upright at a bit of an angled back. And I thought, well, I'll just line them up in a row and put them in a case, and that's what I did. So, yeah.
Wow.
I got tired of the same horizontal stands, and since I wanted to display them all together, that would have been a problem as far as space goes. So
yeah,
I thought, well, I'm going to do this, and I like it.
Yeah,
I'll send you a picture.
Good. Yeah, I remember in 2003 or 4, I think it was 3, I had a little display nook that these 3 things fit perfectly, but it was the blast shield helmet, the training remote, and the Graflex. And I always just loved that
Oh, nice.
little, like, tableau look. And it only lasted a year or 2 because I moved after that, and I probably sold half of that stuff. But like, I'm gonna build another training remote soon, funny enough, and I'm like, I guess I should get a blast shield helmet and just, like, it's
Yeah, I think it's pretty common for a collection to wax and wane, and you lose interest in some things, and you get interested in other things, and
yeah.
so I think lately I've been thinking quite a bit about deacquisitioning a lot of my stuff, because most of it is in boxes in the garage, and it's like, well, that's no good for anybody.
What's the purpose of holding on to it if it's sitting in the garage, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is, you have to get it while it's available. Otherwise, you're kind of shit out of luck. So
yeah, that fear of missing out is real. There have been I've used this example before, but like, there's nothing like a family member passing away and you go and clean out their house and find out that they were kind of a secret hoarder this whole time.
I've been through that. Yeah,
and then you go home and like suddenly 6 black trash bags a week for about a month leave your home. Like, it's time to purge, and it feels good. But like, I also, like, I looked around one day at my stacks and stacks of kits, and I was like, this is going to be Lisa's problem if I die, like, when I die.
Don't die.
Yeah, well, duh, yeah. But I was just like, I can't put her through that, and I'm probably going to go before her, let's be honest. So
there's optimism right there.
Yeah. Yes. But like, even that, like, morbid, like, reality aside, like, there's not enough time left to build them all, even if I quit my job now, especially with my hands being what they are. So I purged a ton, and then it sort of like absolved me from the guilt of maybe missing out on something or whatever. I don't know exactly how to phrase that, but like, I relaxed, and when somebody offers something, unless I really, really, really want it, I just admire it and keep on moving. Which was hard to sort of become the way of thinking.
Yeah.
So,
hey, speaking of kits, I did a search recently and tried to find it, but I couldn't. Somebody started a thread about good kits for kit bashing, or favorite kits for kit bashing, and I remember you posted, I believe it was an armored bulldozer kit.
Yes, yeah. My friend,
my memory.
Martin hipped me to that. Meng, it's the MENG, their armored bulldozer kit. I want to say it's a D something.
Okay.
It is.
I write this down.
Yeah, it is a hell of a kit. Actually, let me look it up so that you guys in the YouTube comments don't have to tell me what it is. MENG. Bulldozer.
It's funny, as I'm typing the note about Meng.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
oh, I need to remember this one.
Yes, it is the Meng D9R armored bulldozer model kit, $89 on Amazon. Last purchased in 2014, apparently. Let me see what I paid.
Oh.
2014. View invoice. I paid. Why did I pay 150? Oh, I bought 2. They used to be $53, but high paid.
Of course, you bought 2. You always buy at least 2.
Yeah, because then you've got at least 2 of something. That kit. And as a quick aside, Lauren Peterson said, I was always an hour early to work when the juices were flowing, so that I knew I could get there, because overnight they would refresh the model stacks, and I could grab 5 of something shrink wrapped and know that I had 5 pieces. He's like, I always got the drop on everybody. I was like, that's clever.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that is a cool kit. I'm looking at the kit right now, and I'm
oh my god, there's so many great parts. I mean, it's a modern kit, so the parts are very nicely styrene pressure injection. And a lot of parts are interesting looking and flat, which is great for slapping down on stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bought 2 of those, and I should probably buy 2 more if I see them cheap, which I guess they're not now. But even the bulldozer has like a cool tine thing that could be like a cool radar or something. It is a fantastic kit.
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's not used on anything. It's just cool for kit bashing.
Well, yeah, Tim and I, by the way, will be online, like competing against one another on eBay, like right after this call, because we're trying to do this.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Meng, if you're watching, I'll take my cut now.
Yeah.
Your sales are about to skyrocket. Yeah, well, but it's funny too. Like, you can tell why some of these like famous donor kits were used so often, because they're just great, like content wise, like the Leopold and the Carl and all those 1/12 scale F1 Tamiya kits. Like, you look at those sprues and all the engine parts are laid out nicely, and it's a wealth of interesting shapes in a very like user friendly form. It's really cool, and like not necessarily a recognizable transmission housing like off of like a like a car would be. Yeah, I dig that stuff. And it's so weird too. Like, I know a lot more about how engines work because I've been using these kits for so long, and like somebody will tell me that's the transfer case, and I'm like, well, what is a transfer case? So I eventually would figure that out. Like, okay, all right. But so is there something that you have built that you couldn't have pulled off without the RPF, like that you like very happy with, like to this day, like fond memories? Like, were you ever part of like a group build or active project or any of that kind of jazz?
I don't recall ever participating in any of those. But certainly I have been inspired many, many times by seeing what others have made on the RPF. One that pops to mind is a steampunkish ray gun. What was his name? Darth Saber, I believe.
Yeah.
Illustrator down in Florida, maybe. But he made this ray gun, and he used part of a fireplace andiron fitting.
Huh.
Yes.
And it's just, seeing these shapes and seeing how you can fit them together and make something fantastic.
And candlesticks and all kinds of things.
Exactly.
Really...
And it's it's just a matter of looking at shapes and seeing what's possible with them.
Yeah.
Well, that really inspired me, and I was off, and I think I found wooden finials and a drawer pull at like Home Depot or Lowe's or something.
Yeah.
And just it was damn fun.
Yeah. I remember pre-RPF wanting to make a lightsaber and standing at the local hardware store thinking, well, I guess if I just stacked an ungodly amount of different sized washers, I could get that Luke saber look. And I never, like a threaded rod, it probably would have looked great. Especially to me, having never doing that stuff in a vacuum, you're only competing with yourself for like what is possible. That's cool. Yeah.
So Tim, did you consider yourself more of like a prop guy or a model guy, or do you kind of play in both of those ponds on the RPF?
Well, interesting. Okay, so professionally, I've done both actually. I got into it, much like you and Jason. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by the behind the scenes stuff, seeing the miniatures, and what put me over the top was seeing the production of Alien. That's what really did it for me. Cool. Obviously Star Wars was huge in my life, but Alien really did it for me. And I was like, man, I want to do that when I grow up.
Well, the drama of the spaces with the shapes and the lighting and everything, it just added so much texture, right?
Yeah. So when I moved to LA, that was what I had in mind. I wanted to be a visual effects industry model maker, and it took a little while, but I eventually got there. So professionally, it was mainly miniatures, but I have done some props, and I guess if you can consider costume components props, it's been a little bit of both. But as far as a hobby on the RPF, it's been, I think, almost exclusively props.
Cool.
You know, I was a bit of a kit builder when I was a kid, but I'm certainly not now. I would rather, you know, scratch build something than buy a kit and build it.
Yeah. Do you ever cosplay, or did you ever dress up and run around?
Well, you know, that white Boba Fett costume, that was the first major thing like that I had ever done, and I just did it to do it. I wanted to see it done.
Yeah.
And I was never really all that comfortable with cosplaying. I don't know. I always felt really awkward.
Yeah.
Being in a costume, and you know, I'll do it for Halloween. I've certainly thrown costumes together for Halloween, but
Yeah.
the whole cosplay thing has never really appealed to me.
Sorry, like Gordon needs attention at all times, apparently. Yeah, I dressed up as a Ghostbuster one Halloween, and I had a scooter, like a little Honda Metropolitan. I think I talked about this, and it looked like a little, you know, red and white Ecto, like goofy scooter thing, and just riding down the street after work, I was just mobbed, and I felt super uncomfortable. Like, it was nice, but I was just like, it's incredible to me how the Ghostbuster costume in particular, like, is a magnet for people who are like clearly are not like sci-fi nerd people. Like, these were like slightly inebriated people who, you know, like boating culture in a downtown sailing boat, you know, like Annapolitan. Like, it was weird, you know. They're like, Ghostbusters, yeah, clapping me on the back, and I'm like, I gotta get home. Like, this is not cool. So I don't know, like, I'm not antisocial at all, but I feel like if I like wore a lot of costumes, I would feel like weird. Like,
Yeah, it's just it's strangely uncomfortable.
yeah.
I can't explain. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, I have no problem with people doing it. I admire it. But
Yeah,
like,
I love seeing it, but
yeah,
I just don't want to do it myself.
yeah, and I don't know whether I'd like the types of things I'd want to do. The whole time I'd worry that I'd break something on it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wouldn't be able to relax.
Don't touch me! Don't touch me!
It was very delicate. He's such an angry Ghostbuster.
I had a friend who, you know, he's a muggle, right? And knew I had all this Ghostbuster stuff, and he's like, hey, can I borrow some of your Ghostbuster stuff for like a Halloween party?
Ooh.
And I was like, well, like the uniform and stuff? Yeah, sure, the uniform. No, he wanted the pack. And I was like, oh no, yeah, that's not. Yeah. I felt so bad because he came over to like pick all this stuff up, and he's like, well, what about the pack? I'm like, oh, you can't take that. There's no way in hell I'm letting you take the pack.
You can leave a deposit of $3,000 in cash and go from there. Sign this affidavit. Like,
well, there's a reason why I'm doing a third, right? You know, each time I get a little bit better with my construction, yeah. And things are a little bit sturdier.
Yeah. I mean, I jumped on that Hasbro pack, which is unlike me to like buy that kind of stuff these days, especially. But I remember, like, I've wanted to Proton pack since I sold that one in 2003, and I sold it right after Halloween, probably because it was just like, I'm never wearing this again. This was too intense, and it was also like 40 pounds, and the new one's like 8 or something. I'm like, how can I not? Because I just want to hang it on the wall, like, you know. I just think it's so cool.
It's a good wall hanger.
Yeah. I always wanted a Fett rocket pack, a Rocketeer pack, and you know, the Ghostbusters one. And I've had I never got a Fett pack. Paid a Novos for one. And I had a Rocketeer pack for like a kit from Acme for like 5 years, and that was just one of those things that I got rid of in the purge. You know, but it'd be cool to get a Rocketeer pack again, I guess.
So Tim, what's one of your white whales? I mean, like I'm going back to the proton pack, and I'm looking at R2D2 in the future, and of course my model kit stash. But what are the pieces that you've chased or continue to chase or are chasing?
Or have thought about for decades.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, definitely the Ralph McQuarrie Slave One model. Hint, hint. Get on it, Jason.
All right.
Yeah, I have never acquired a Rocketeer pack either. And interestingly enough, one of my friends, good friends who I've worked with, he worked on the Rocketeer. He worked on the Rocket pack.
Cool.
Yeah, and the helmet. Man, he has a sweet helmet that he had everybody sign, and it's just amazing. But yeah, definitely that's been probably the biggest one for, well, ever since I saw the film. It's just beautiful design.
Yeah.
And maybe eventually through my friend I'll finally have one. We'll see.
And he used to be up in Oregon, and then he moved to California. Did he move back?
No, he's still in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know the man of which you speak.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Are we all gonna have rocket packs 6 months from now?
I hope so. That'd be awesome.
Is this happening? I used to have the MR helmet because it was brass, but it was also like real pinched. I remember trying to put it on my head, and I was like, I'm gonna be in the hospital with
I
crystal
just
on my
recently
neck.
got rid of mine. I've never cared for it because, in my opinion, it was a bait switch. They for the prototype they showed a casting from an original. It's like, oh, this is what we're gonna get. But no, the final product was handmade in India. And it's like, what?
Oh,
What the heck is this?
Yeah, I remember mine smelled musty,
Oh yeah.
and I vividly remember somebody opened their box and there were like bugs everywhere.
Oh.
Bugs. It was this it was a classic RPF like rage thread where they were like, "How dare you!" It almost showed them like opening the box, like a step-by-step kind of thing. And it was, everybody was like grossed out.
not to freak you guys out, but I know someone who professionally imports things from like stainless steel and those types of products from other countries. They had to invest in a Geiger counter because of
God.
Wow.
That's frightening.
Cool.
And I don't know if it was India or China. India kind of is the stainless steel capital of the world, and China does a lot of other things. Yeah, a little frightening.
I mean, hey, there was melamine in the pet food a couple of years back.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting sometimes.
No.
The big, scary world.
Even with prop replicas, you don't know what you get.
No.
If you get it.
If you get it. Yeah. I won't do, besides Hasbro, because I'm like, I don't know, if Hasbro screws up a pre-order, like there's other problems going on in our economy. It's not like a small company by any means, but I don't do pre-orders.
No, but musty Rocketeer helmet, not a big deal. But if you turn off the lights and it's glowing, I would run.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I sold it, I guess.
I'm kidding.
Yikes. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think that's probably my biggest white whale. The Rocketeer pack.
Cool.
Because I have all the lightsabers that I want. I think nothing comes to mind.
Yeah. Did you ever get into any knockdown drag out fights or anything? Did you ever join a sub board or participate in any of the fiefdoms and Hatfield McCoy type of situations?
Yeah, I think I was on all of the boards.
Yeah.
Even some of the questionable ones.
Yeah.
But I don't recall ever actively participating. I was certainly a witness. Sometimes an aghast witness.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's no comprehensive database, because I said some boneheaded shit when I was young and dumb.
Yeah.
But
I I'm sure I have too, but I don't recall ever getting into anything really serious with anyone.
Yeah.
I like to think that it's not really in my nature to be that way.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm sure I've thrown out some snide comments every now and then.
Yeah.
I must have.
Who hasn't?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see stuff now going on in the collectibles field, licensed or unlicensed, especially. And I see some stuff where I'm like, that's clown shoes, man. And I just don't say anything. It's like, you know what? Let people be happy with their thing, and all right, not for me. But it surprises me how sometimes somebody can interpret something so clumsily, and I'm like, are you rushing, or are you literally not looking at the thing? Like, and then it makes, you know, I was like, if I say any of this, I'm gonna sound like such an elitist asshole. So I just don't say anything. I'm like, all right.
Yep, been there and recently, and regretted even saying something.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah, I mean, and there's little, there's a lot of new people, like a lot. I feel like there's a ton of new people all of a sudden. And I know it's not all of a sudden. I think I'm just paying attention a little more to what the lay of the land is recently anyway. And that's part of why we started doing these little chitter chats, because I'm like, there's no perspective on how things got to where they are. And I'm seeing some people talk about things, they're getting all the facts wrong. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, as we know, especially over the last however many years with our American culture, if you say crazy, wacky shit enough times, that becomes the truth. So I'm like, I think that probably some of us old timers, or at least people who have the information correct, should probably pipe up and tell our tales of woe and whimsy or whatever. So,
oh, definitely. Yeah. If there's some fact that I know for sure is factual, I will definitely put it out there.
Yeah. And then if it gets ignored, okay, I tried. You guys take care.
I can do.
Yeah. And a lot of it too, like I mean, I've been in this position more and more, as is Brian now too. Like we know some of the guys that were there and did the work. You know, we know the original ILMers now, a lot of them, and they're all lovely, really crazily down to earth dudes. To the point where like you forget who they are sometimes when you're just hanging out and chatting. It's like, oh right, you're famous and one of my heroes from childhood. Weird.
Yeah. So here's a story for you. My very first film I worked on in LA was Red Planet. That was at Digital Domain.
Yeah.
I really didn't know much at that point. I knew a little bit. I'd get by. So my first day there, I got put with this older guy to help him out. It was Dave Beasley.
Nice.
And of course, you know, the other guys are telling me, oh, he worked on Star Wars. And of course, I'm not going to mention that. I don't want to bring that up. And, you know, because you just don't do that.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have loved to have talked about it. I don't know, but I didn't want to be that guy. Or one.
You didn't want to go all fanboy on him on a professional job, right?
I still think about this today, every now and then. The first little pro tip he gave me is that if you have a shape that's if you have a radius and you're sanding it, go at it at 45-degree angles so you don't change the radius.
Huh.
I still think about that.
That's awesome.
Think about the other week. Good old Dave Beasley.
Yeah.
He was just a guy.
Yeah.
Quiet guy, interesting guy. It was pretty obvious he was a hippie back in the day.
Yeah.
That's not there's anything wrong with that. But you know, he was interested in ornithopters and robot. He pronounced robots. Ornithopters and robots.
Nice.
You know what? There's nothing
Cool
wrong.
that you worked with him. That's neat.
And I also I worked at Grant McCune Design once for a few weeks, and unfortunately not on a film or anything like that. But you know, I was in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Professionally, you weren't there just like, hey, can we look around? We're nerds, you know.
Yeah. And I was one day I was working in a room that was separate from the main shop area. I was using a piece of equipment. I think it was like a roller or something to bend. I don't remember what it was. Bending something, rolling it through this roller. And there's this old guy in there. I think he was might have been at a drafting table working on stuff. And we struck up a conversation. We were just chatting about whatever. And I had no idea who he was. I was told later that it was Bill Short.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And Bill had worked with Grant on Star Wars.
Yeah.
And even more crazy, and this kind of leads to, I told you about the flash hider that I cleaned the Cosplay off for a Greedo Killer Blaster build. I part of why I did that build was because of Bill, because I was told by my friend who had worked there a lot, and he had gotten this from another regular there, that in that insert shot in the cantina, where Han is pulling the blaster out of the holster, that was a pickup shot done in LA after they had returned from the UK. And that hand is Bill Short's hand. That's Bill Short.
Huh. That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this regular there, he printed that out. He got it, printed out a screen cap and took it to Bill and said, "Hey, will you autograph this?" And Bill didn't deny that it was him, and he signed it. So I guess that was Bill.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat to see photographs percolate up through the years and realize a lot of those pickup shots were done in the model shop or somewhere in California.
Yeah, they rented a stage or a warehouse somewhere, and they built out part of the cantina. And
yeah, plugging in R2 into the data port to read the Death Star plans, that was done here, you know, in the US, because I assume only because there's a picture of Grant McCune with R2 and the plug, and they're like rigging the thing. So
okay, cool.
That's my supposition. Yeah.
So did you ever visit Grant McCune Design when they were still around?
No, sadly. I mean, I did, but I didn't go in. Like I was there, like
also you're outside,
like outside with the chain link fence. Yeah, they had closed. It was night, and I never got a chance to meet Grant before he passed, which is a bummer. But
yeah, I never interacted with him. You know, he would at that point he was basically a figurehead for the company. He would come in and he would basically sit outside and read. And,
not so bad. Right?
Yeah, because he had his major domos that would run the business. And
yeah.
But no, I just remember wasn't necessarily a showroom or a conference room, but they had this separate room, and you had the X-Wing in there in the case.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see. My personal opinion, it wasn't that great. I mean, obviously it's a piece of history. I was more impressed by this tiny little turbo laser tower on top of the case.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It was the coolest thing ever.
That's so cool.
I would have wanted to have that, you know.
Yeah.
I don't care about the next thing. I want that thing. That's really cool.
Do you find yourself a little jaded?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
Isn't it weird? Like,
it's very strange. Yeah, the shine wears off really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And like things that I was so hungry for, now I'm like, whatever.
A lot of creatives that I talk to spend their entire day just working and cranking things out, and then in the after hours don't have the ability. They just don't have the mojo to work on their own projects. How do you do that? How do you find that ability to?
Well, ironically, a few years back, I had serious trouble with that. I was experiencing creative burnout. At the end of the day, I just wanted to get out of there, which it made me sad, and I disappointed because I have a whole to-do list of stuff that I want to get to and make for myself. And I just reached a point where I didn't want to do it. I just want to go home at the end of the day. Because, you know, we make stuff 8 hours a day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And, you know,
It's exhausting, right?
it can be. It definitely can be. You know, there are times where it's a definite grind, and it's just, and I know there were times in LA where honestly there were occasions where I dreaded going to work because I knew what I was facing that day, and it's not always fun.
Yeah.
It's a job. It is a job. It's a job.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
So how did you break that cycle? Because you said you used to not be able to focus on any of your passion projects. So what changed for you?
I think what broke it for me was being laid off, and I was away from it for 16 months.
That didn't do it.
That can do it.
It did it for me. It was the good slap in the face that I needed. And no, when I eventually got back to it, after work, I'm making my own stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think the question on everybody's mind is, where did you get your glasses? Because they are delightful.
Oh, thank you. I got them online, Frames Direct maybe, or
wow.
Best Frames. They're Ray-Bans.
Okay. Yeah, Brian and I are club masters.
We're all wearing, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm looking at them.
Oh,
I'm looking at them like, those are chrome, and they kind of like, I remember when Prometheus came out, I was like, I need that guy's glasses. Yeah, those are nice.
For the past several years, I've bought nothing but Ray-Ban Clubmaster frames.
Yeah.
And I think last time I got these a couple of years ago, and these are, you know, clear, transparent.
Oh,
And
their reading is chrome. Okay.
they are because of the silver metal.
Oh, right.
yeah. Oh, I see that. Yeah.
Nice.
But my pair before these, they're made out of wood, literal wood.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Clubmasters?
Clubmaster, Ray-Ban Clubmaster,
Wow.
made in Italy. And I think they're maybe more so intended for sunglasses.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I want those for my daily wear.
Yeah.
And they're pretty sweet.
That's awesome.
But, you know, I got tired of those and wanted something different.
Yeah. I've had a pair clear, but the way that looks in the screen is mwah, wonderful.
Well, maybe it's time to go back to clear.
I just got a new pair. I had gotten a pair of red Clubmasters. I settled on Clubmaster like, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever. And sometimes I'll get black, sometimes I'll get tortoiseshell. I sometimes I like to have two pair because I seem to, you know, like break them at some point. So it's nice to have a backup. But I was wearing a pair of red when our Star Wars Stories filmed me.
Oh yeah, right.
And a famous RPF crank guy on YouTube was just like, those glasses are real fruity. And he's a very conservative fella. And I was just like, oh, all right. And needled him a little bit. And he just wouldn't.
Well, you should see his shoes.
Yeah, right. I mean, come on. Yeah, he my spectators. Woo, he wouldn't let it go. And so the joke was that I had fruity glasses. And then Brian, you hit me to the pair that I had last year that almost existed completely in a vacuum because of COVID. Like no one really saw them. It was just such a shame because they were that blue wave.
Blue. Yeah. Those are cool.
Yeah, and so it reminded me of a guitar pick I had in high school that was like lenticular, you know, had that like depth to it. It was a crinkle, but there was depth to it. It was like brilliant blue. If you went outside and the sun hit it, it just like did all sorts of crazy shit. And I was like, cool, Brian, thanks. And then like you broke it to me that like you were going to get them, and then I got them, and sort of like.
I was like, oh, fuck it. I'm out.
Yeah,
not happening.
Like, I felt so bad. So I'm back to the really, really dark blue that only really shows up blue in direct sunlight with orange behind it. So I don't know if you can see the orange. Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah. So get the blue wave if you can. I think they're still on the website. But wood. I'm into Ray-Bans now. Like, I want the weird ones.
It was wood. I believe it came in, they offered walnut and some light color, like maybe ash or I don't know what, and then cherry. And I got the cherry.
Cool.
It was kind of reddish. And on the inside, it was blue rubber.
What?
Yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah.
I gotta stalk their site. It's it's the little things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? And it's funny too when I go to my eye doctor. He's like, "Do you want to get frames here?" And I was like, "Do you have Club Masters?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "Then no." Like,
Yes,
what do you not? He's like, "We have something close," and I'm like, like, no. Like, I've settled on this one thing, and when it gets discontinued, I will be heartbroken. That's how life works with me.
Yep.
I pick the one thing on the menu that I decide that I like, and then you guys will get rid of it in a month.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I went to Ray-Ban because Warby Parker stopped making their version.
Warby Parker were always too broad for me, and they would just slide down my face. Like, yeah. I like the Warby Parkers; those were cool, but not for my melon head, man. Unfortunately, same with that Rocketeer helmet; just wouldn't go on.
Yeah.
My God! All right, so did we cover enough? Do we like it?
I don't know. Did we?
We never.
How much time we got left?
We're
As much time as you want.
Yeah, we're at 4:15. Maybe we can go a little longer if you want.
Well, I wanted to touch on the RPF in the aspect of the people that I've gotten to meet.
Yes, let's do this because I'm really high on all the cool people I've met, so I would love to hear yours.
Exactly, and it's just it amazes me, not just RPF but the internet in general. I've gotten to meet people who it never would have happened otherwise.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, corresponding with Frank Cerny, and we kind of sort of kept in touch because I'm originally from Colorado. So when I found the AOL boards, I was in Colorado, and when I eventually moved to LA, which was spring of '98, I was like, "Hey Frank, I'm here now," and he had an RPF drop party, and I went there, and that's where I met Matt Munson.
The Matt Munson?
The Matt Munson. And let me tell you, he's like a black hole. You get sucked into his orbit, and wow, it's just, talk about a charismatic son of a bitch.
Yeah. It's that dashing smile. He's not on.
That's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can embarrass the hell out of him.
Yeah, I wish he was here so we could talk about it, and I'd be interested to get his take on what he remembers. Because I remember I had taken the Rocketeer helmet that I was working on at the time, and I remember Matt had the Mojo from Austin Powers, and it was literally pipe cleaners. And I don't know if it was water or alcohol or glycerin or what, but I'm pretty sure that's what the actual prop was pipe cleaners, and it was brilliant.
So good.
And
the simplicity of it is brilliant, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me of everybody making those balls filled with Prel from The Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that was real in vogue for about 6 months.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And then being in touch with Brandon, and every now and then we trade an email or two, and that Schwanksville prop party, where I met you for the first time.
Yeah.
It was either 2002 or maybe 2003.
2 or 3 would work in the timeline. Yeah. I mean, it was early 2000s for sure.
That was the first time that I have a feeling many people met Brandon for the first time.
Yeah.
We were all shocked at how young he was.
Yeah.
He was just a kid.
Yeah.
And we had no idea.
Yeah. I think when I met him briefly before then, only because we're both local. He lived in Towson, which ironically is like 5 minutes from where I am now. At the time I was like an hour south, but Yeah, he was like 17 or something. It was nuts.
We had no idea. That was crazy.
Yeah.
So when he eventually made his way out to LA, and he started up the LA branch of Prop Store London. He got hooked up with Stephen Lane, and which seemed like, how obvious was that? Of course he would do that.
Right. Yeah.
Natural fit.
Yeah.
Totally
Just makes so
natural
much
fit.
sense. He out of the blue, I got an email from him. He's like, he's in LA and he's doing this, and I went. He invited me over to the very first location. Was this tiny little unit in this nondescript industrial park, and it boggles my mind to think of that progression of how they grew. But he started asking me if I would consider doing repair on some of the things that they had. So several occasions I would go by, and he had drug out all the stuff that needed put back together, or parts stuck back on, and I think we agreed on like a day rate, and this much for today and tomorrow, and okay, yeah, we can do that. And I would just sit there in their warehouse and repair some of the stuff that they had in their inventory.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was fascinating. Obviously, I'd been exposed to it working in an industry, but it was fascinating to see how crude some of these props were, because you could get away with a lot on film. But these days, not so much anymore, with the high def and people being able to do freeze frame and screen cap and just scrutinize the things. But I always found it fascinating and kind of funny how some of these things are just garbage, terrible.
Yeah.
But on film it worked. It was fine, because you see it for a split second and it doesn't matter. And then eventually they had gotten a hold of a spare set of parts for the Han Solo blaster during Return of the Jedi that had come from Bapti in the UK.
Huh.
So when they were in Northern California on location, they had a live fire Mauser for Han Solo. And I don't know why, I guess because they had been doing it all along, but Bapti had sent parts over to a gun rental company in LA, Stembridge. So they sent parts to dress up the gun. They sent 2 sets. For whatever reason, they only built out one. And the extra parts got thrown in a box and put on a shelf and forgotten. So when Stembridge went out of business, they found these parts. Prop Store acquired them. And Brandon, they wanted to auction them off. So Brandon asked me to assemble them onto an MGC. And then they put it up for auction. I think it went for like, maybe 100,000.
This stuff is nuts.
It is. It's crazy because
This is like out of the box thinking, though, too. Like, who would think to have that on their radar?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
A business going out of business.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are probably several instances of stuff they had that nobody realized was there.
Yeah. When McCune Design went out of business or closed, or however you want to phrase it, buddy of ours went and sort of chronicled a lot of the helped, with some of the stuff. You're like, this is that, that's trash, whatever. And
Yeah.
they knew a fair amount of what they had. But yeah, when you start digging, they found there's this great like sequence of shots where it was a box that just said micro balloons on it. It was a huge box, and it was on a forklift going into the dumpster, and everybody was standing back like holy shit, get that out of here. There was just an ungodly amount of plastruct that we all got a little like segment of. So I have like a stack of tubes and stuff, and I've got like some weird photo etch. I don't know what it's from. It could be from V'ger, it could be from a commercial. but it's like weird,
exactly,
cool
yeah.
shapes and stuff. Yeah. The best story I heard, because one of our friends, Sean Sides went down too. I think he went there, and somebody beat him to it. But they found the double-barreled laser turret from the large-scale Galactica model. Just that shot of the gun like tracking, like just that bay, and it was like just sitting somewhere, and he just, I don't know if he paid for it or but he was just like, hey, and they were like, yeah, whatever. Like nobody knew what it was, and then Sean saw it, was like, fuck, like no, yeah. So that kind of stuff, the fact that stuff comes to light 40 some odd years later is unsurprising, but like fascinating.
And it's amazing how crude it is too. It's just very, it was obvious on the flash hider that there were no real measurements taken. They were just eyeballing it because the grooves were they weren't spaced precisely, and just I'll just eyeball, because it didn't matter.
Right.
It didn't matter back then.
Yeah.
It was one take or two takes, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was back then before, high def and screen capping technology, and there was no way to scrutinize it back then.
Yeah. So I mean, like, how big was our television growing up?
Exactly.
Like 13-inch. Yeah.
And the best you could do was freeze framing VHS and
the little jagged tracking and all that. Yeah. It's nightmarish.
So it's pretty amazing, some of the stuff I've been able to see and work on, just knowing Brandon from all those years ago. And
what a cool opportunity. And that wouldn't have happened if you had not found the RPF.
Exactly.
Incredible.
And one particular friendship from the RPF. So we all remember, AKA Chaucer 44, AKA Golden Armor,
who is now reborn and doing digital stuff and killing it on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, fucking for real? Like, you guys don't know who this guy is? Like, okay.
But I early on, I was one of the victims. I had purchased the Fifth Element police weapon, and it was, craptastic, just a piece of shit. And I don't know if I asked or if it eventually came out and he put it forward, but I was wondering, well, who was the person that made the master that resulted in this piece of shit casting? I don't know how it happened, but it turns out it was Sean Morgan.
Yeah. So he recast Sean Morgan's, which, by the way, Sean's was beautiful. I had one. Yeah.
And so it was over that I crossed paths with Sean Morgan, and I'm still friends with him today, 20 some odd years later. And it's a friendship that I cherish. He's an amazing dude and super fucking talented.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
He was patterning stuff in wood that guys still
before the RPF.
Yeah. And he did things by hand that people still today don't get to the level of with their 3D prints.
It's mind-boggling. Yeah, he did a full-size endoskeleton out of wood, mostly wood, probably 90% wood. A full-size IG-88, same deal,
Funny enough, he had sent to a friend of mine, John, a concept VK machine that he had created. Yeah. All out of solid wood. Like, it was all felt very solid. I'm sure there were pieces put together, but it was this beautifully primered single piece. It was gorgeous and heavy as hell. It was heavy.
But so I got to talking to Sean. It's like, hey, I got this thing from. Can I borrow your original pattern and I'll make a mold and I'll give you the mold. I just want one decent casting. And so we worked out a deal, and it went from there. And
was there a small private run? Because I had one of those, and I feel like it might have been from.
I don't know that it was private, but Sean did a small run of them, and he did a much better, much more accurate version later, many years later.
Maybe it was that.
It might have been that. Yeah.
I had his concept Deckard
Did
gun.
Mead, yeah.
Yeah,
This
that was
blaster.
so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That was a really gratifying and fun build. Yeah.
That was the thing with Sean, is that what I liked about his stuff was it was all these obscure things
Yeah.
off the path,
Yeah.
stuff that nobody else had ever done or even thought of doing. Just these really cool things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he do a flamethrower or from
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
Flamethrower, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, he's one of the original guys that had the goods and always made, well, like you said, very compelling stuff.
Yeah.
I'll ask the question. What are you working on now?
Personally or professionally?
Well, you could answer both if you want to, but personally first.
Oh, personally, it's been quite a few years since I've done one, but my thing has always been making prop replicas from the Hellboy comics.
Yeah.
I think I was the pathfinder on that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when, before anybody had even heard of Hellboy, before the first film. But I'm working on well, it's from an offshoot. It's from the BPRD comics. And it's not even drawn by Mignola at this time. It's how would I describe this? It's a dagger that's used to kill a weird jaguar.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so in the story, one of the BPRD team members is former military, Captain Benjamin Daimio. He was on a mission in South America, and they were attacked by this creature. And I guess much like a werewolf, if you're attacked and you survive, you become one. So he is this weird jaguar that he keeps suppressed with the help of a shaman. He has these treatments every so often that keeps it suppressed. But in the story, you get the background on when this all happened, and it turns out the only thing that can kill a weird jaguar is this particular dagger. You know, it's a knapped stone blade, and it has this intricate kind of Mayan/Aztec gold pommel. And so I'm working on that. I've been working on that for a little while now, and it's been, I think, like 8 years since I've done something from the Hellboy comics. So it was overdue, long overdue, because I have a list as long as my arm of these things that I've been wanting to get to.
Will it be a one-off, like just you're making it for yourself and that's it?
No, it's become a kind of a tradition. Early on, I would make 2, and I would give one to my friend Jamie, who turned me on to the Hellboy comics.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the years, it's grown to include other friends, and I think I'm up to about 6 now. So I'll be making roughly 6 of them.
That's so cool. And are you gifting them? You're giving them away?
Yeah.
That's so lovely.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Always been gifts for these particular friends who are into it.
Yeah. That's cool.
People who are really truly interested in it. It's
the people who get it.
Yeah. Well, it's really inspiring. Like, I think that's really cool. There have been so many things I've wanted to do over the years that like just little creative endeavors. I never make the time for them, which is sad. But I love it when I hear somebody doing that, and that clearly is scratching that itch for you.
Yeah, it's I really enjoy making this stuff, and I like sharing it a little bit too. You know?
Yeah. So have the creators or the people who work on Hellboy, they've seen your, I mean, are you?
Yes.
Is there a community, and are you in it, and a known entity?
There was back in the day, early 2000s, there was the website hellboy.com, which actually was ironically not owned by the creator, Mike Mignola. It was just this random woman who loved Hellboy and bought the domain, back then when it was the Wild West, and could snap those things up. But there's a forum, a message board, much like the RPF, and I think I was the only one of the very few. Well, I was the only guy doing props, but there were a few guys doing sculptures. A lot of illustrators and painters that would do their riff, but I was the prop guy making these props.
So great.
And there were always rumblings about, there's going to be a film, maybe. And when that started to solidify and it was looking like it was going to happen, was Guillermo del Toro. I didn't realize this, but the website owner, her name is Jonelle Napper, she started forwarding pictures of the stuff that I'd been making to the Del Toro camp.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And when she eventually told me, I was like, what are you doing? But also, oh, that's so cool. Wow. How awesome is that? Because that year, I think it must have been, had to have been 2002. Guillermo and Mike Mignola and Ron Perlman were going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, and they're going to do a panel, and then they're going to have a signing afterwards. So I was thinking, here's an opportunity for me to do some stuff for the film. So one of the amulets that I had done, which is Cornelius Agrippa's charm against demonic animals, the very first one that I had done, my very first experimentation with metal casting, turned out pretty well. I was happy with it. I cast up 3 of those, and I was in line for the signing, and I remember the table where they were signing the posters. First person was Ron Perlman, gave one to him. He's like, oh, cool, thank you very much. Next to him was Mike Mignola, gave one to him. He was like, I think nonplussed. He's like, what the fuck is this? And then on the end was Guillermo, and I gave one to him, and he was like, you're that guy on the internet. Yeah, that's me. I'm that guy on the internet. Here's my resume, and here's I had my portfolio with me.
Smart man.
Threw it down, flipping through the pages. Here's the stuff I've done.
Ready to go.
Okay, I'll have the prop master contact you. And he did. It was a couple weeks later. Got a phone call out of the blue. His name was Michael Lindsay. And I went by his house and we chatted, and Guillermo had a laundry list of stuff he wanted. And it was stuff that I had already done, unfortunately. So I didn't get to make something new from a concept drawing, which it was kind of a bummer, but that would have been silly to be bummed about that. I was getting to make stuff for the Hellboy film.
Wow.
So
that's the dream, right?
Yeah. From a fanboy perspective, that was pretty fucking cool. Yeah.
Cool.
That was pretty neat.
Very cool. Wow. Yeah. How do you?
And so back to your question, yes, they were aware, at least at that point, of my stuff. And since then, I think Jonelle sold the domain to Mike and Christine, and the board was disbanded, and it migrated over to comic book resources forums, and it was there for a little while, and then for some dumb reason they did like a reboot, and all that history was wiped.
All
that stuff was gone.
That's awesome.
And yeah,
that's a shame.
It is a shame.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much my jam is doing the Hellboy comic book stuff.
I love that.
And
it's such a unique thing that, like,
Yeah, there's nobody else doing it.
Still, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, but like you've been consistently doing this for 20,
Yeah,
20 years, right? 2002. I mean, or
yeah, the first things I did is year 2000, and I wasn't doing everything consistently. It was a piece maybe every couple years. I get back to it every years, and then in I think it was in 2000, must have been like 2012. A company in Maine, they had been doing replicas of the keys from a comic book called Lock and Key.
Mm.
So that kind of put them on the map. They're doing these keys, which are very cool. But they talked to Mike Mignola and they acquired the license for Hellboy and BPRD. So they started making, the amulets and the talismans, basically the stuff that I had been doing. But they had a license for it. So they were producing licensed replicas. And the guy actually contacted me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing some of the pattern making? And of course I was like, oh shit, yeah, I'm definitely interested. And ironically, the piece he had in mind for me to do was that very first amulet that I had done, the Agrippa charm.
Wow.
And I had given to Ron Perlman and Mike Mignola and Guillermo del Toro. So I was able to take another crack at that one.
Cool.
And then like a year later, the following year, he approached me again for another piece. And it was a really cool piece that when I had seen it years before in the comics, there was this close-up panel and it was just begging to be replicated. It was like Mignola saying, here, you want, here, do this one. But it was that one. I was like, oh, hell yeah, I definitely want to do that one. Because I'd been thinking about it all these years. And I think it was like 8 years I've been thinking about this thing. How would I do it? How would I approach it? So I did that one. That was the Agru Jihad amulet. And it was pretty intricate. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but it was fun at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think it turned out really well. I was happy with it. I think Israel Skelton was happy with it.
That's amazing though, that you've been able to take like your avocation and translate it into your vocation.
Yes.
Like those interests. I mean, that's everybody's dream, is to take a very, I want to call it Hellboy a niche interest, right? Because I think a lot of people love Hellboy. I'm a huge fan of the Del Toro movies, the 2 Del Toro movies, but to be able to take, those concept pieces from the comic, turn them into something tangible, and then also see it on the screen, and to have it mass produced. That's so cool.
Yeah, because one of the pieces that I did for the longer list of items that Guillermo handed down to the prop master, they ended up using in the film. I wasn't really sure, what would happen with the stuff I had made, but they ended up using it. It was the amulet that he used to resurrect the corpse in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, once again, I was like, oh my God. How cool
and
is
here's the reality of it. Like, all this stuff that you made probably is in Del Toro's collection at his house.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
There are worse places for your work to be showcased.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can say, I have a couple of pieces in the Del Toro collection. So in that aspect, it is very cool when your avocation can become a vocation. But at the same time, like when I was talking about the creative burnout I experienced, sometimes when your avocation becomes your vocation, it can turn into a nightmare when it becomes a drag.
Yeah.
Because it's a commitment and an obligation. It's not about
it becomes work.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. Sean Morgan always is after me whenever I do something for myself, that's, I enjoy doing it as a one-off for myself because it's fun. It's fun creating it. He's always after me to do a run. And I'm like, no, when it becomes work, it takes all the joy out of it. It just kills it.
Yeah.
I think we have this, there's something, and I don't know if it's just like culturally in the United States or if we see this elsewhere, but certainly during this time period. And it's very flattering, I think, but you create a piece and instantly other people want to monetize that piece.
Yeah.
And that's not just one person, that's a lot of people. You create something and they're like, oh, well, you can make prints of that, or oh, you could cast that up and sell kits, and instantly wanting to rush to some kind of more mass, not mass in mass, but multiples for profit.
Yeah, well, I understand that. I don't think it's always for profit is in mind. It's just, it's nice to share stuff with people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because there are others, have similar interests.
But culturally, for most people, value in what you do creatively is like tied to what is it worth.
Yeah.
Like, you're not making money at it, you're not like
do it.
successful or whatever. And it's like you don't necessarily. It's such an easy trap to fall into, and it's just awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me personally, I've always preferred one-off. I have done small runs in the past, but personally, I prefer just doing one-offs for myself because I enjoy the process of creating it.
Yeah, I get asked if I'll do a run of like the Macquarie probe droid. They're like, are you gonna sell them, or are you gonna make a kit? And I'm like, absolutely not. One and done. Like,
no, I totally get that.
Yeah. And that being said, if somebody wants it and the price is right, I'm like, so long, probe droid. Because for me, it's the making, it's not the keeping. Although right now I really do like, it's, you can see it right there. I'm watching TV and I look over and I'm like, like it's still new and fresh and happy. But like, the fastest way to hate something you love is to turn it into a job, usually.
It just kills it. It kills the joy for me.
Yeah. I have to be very mindful of that.
Yeah.
So
I guess back to your question of what I'm working on at the moment, I'm working on a Hellboy piece or a BPRD piece. And I have a couple other things in the works too, but I won't get into that. But professionally, now I can, since they finally announced it last year, I can say that we are working on Wildwood at Leica.
Cool.
I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah. It's a book written by Colin Malloy, who is
Decemberist.
Yeah. Written by him and I believe illustrated by his wife.
Yep.
And I think there are several volumes. But as far as I know, they optioned the first one, I think back in maybe 2011. And we are now getting around to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been a Decemberist fan and a fan of her graphic design for ages. So that's exciting. And Leica's like a perfect machine to pull that into reality, I feel like.
Well, particularly because, it's all local. It's a local story and Leica is local, and yeah,
that's cool.
I figured if anyone would know, it would be you, Jason.
Yeah, just it's funny, the Decemberist board Orate, which I think doesn't exist anymore, which is sad, is sort of a very small version of what the phenomena that happened with the RPF. It was a group of like intellectual disjointed weirdos that all sort of glommed onto the Decemberists, or glommed onto each other via the Decemberists, their love of that music. And then you have to be a certain kind of person to really get into that, and seek out a fan board, you know, on the
Yeah,
internet. And then you talked about everything but the Decemberists after a while. And some of the friendships I forged with these people like carried over to Facebook. Like, but a couple of them are like 20 years older than me, you know, like,
wow,
yeah, it's crazy.
that's surprising.
That's really great. All right. I'm gonna need to go.
Okay.
But is there anything else we wanna and please come back again? Like we're gonna keep doing this. And I know Matt.
Okay, I don't know what the hell we'll talk about, but I'd certainly be willing to come back.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we can get you and Matt like riffing off.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah. That might be good.
That'd be cool. But thank you. This was fantastic. This is
Oh,
great.
thank you.
Like you've got some cool insider looks into everything that went on concurrently with what we experienced. I just love that.
Yeah, I was there. You know, even though my incept date on the board says 2003, I was there. Because
Those dates mean nothing.
It migrated more than once. So
yeah. And I love how that's still sticking in our craw 20 years later. I was there before. Like,
Yes,
I
2003
got so many messages about the incept date.
So good. It's so good. Yeah. It keeps me up at night every once in a while. Yeah, those poor guys. You guys who ran the board. This is a losing proposition most of the time.
yes,
How I have like a
I didn't realize how involved you were behind the scenes, and so thank you for your personal sacrifice
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
in keeping the board running. Because
I mean it was funny. So I mean I don't know, we could probably do a whole thing on it
I
where
yeah.
like when we handed this over to Art and Art decided to start running with it and turning it into what we see today as the RPF, which has been great, how he's been able to sustain it. I think I even left the hobby for a period of time. Like I got into photography. I said, I need to step away from this. I had a very bad taste in my mouth from the hobby. And only after time have I been able to come back and actually enjoy all of this again and not look at it as it became a job is what it
Yeah.
became, and I lost my love.
No, I get it. It happens,
Yeah.
but you always come back.
But you always come back. And maybe I'm just glutton for punishment, I guess. I don't know.
You know, I should get a Graflex. Oh, Christ. Yeah, I think I have purchased an Obi-Wan saber 3 or 4 times over, and I get rid of, you know, it's like I should just get it and keep it. You know, like I know it's coming back.
I
I
have
have parts.
all original parts Obi-Wan. So
Oh you're one of them.
that is my
That's beautiful.
Wow.
that's probably my most prized piece.
I
Definitely.
believe that. Yeah. I'll get a Romans or something. I'll be fine with
Because the thing is just amazing.
it is.
It's
That-
ironic how everything just fit together precisely.
And it's so like built differently from the Graflex. Like the Graflex was
yeah,
so-
totally different thing.
wow. Yeah.
Apples and oranges.
Yeah. But and from the same time period, which is just like it scratches that itch. Like, wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna stop recording. Well, first I'll say thank you again, and thank you for sharing all your stories, and we'll see you soon.
Thank
Okay.
you, Tim. And guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yes.
Yes.
I will see you all on the board.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, hang on.